Thanks for recording these. I met somebody today who saw my talk from the recording from last year. So actual evidence that these recordings are getting to people. I don't have a presentation, I have a story to tell, and I'm happy to answer questions. I am a very early adopter, but I'm not a conversion person. I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm a retired biologist. I was an evolutionary ecologist. And so I care about the environment, care about the planet. And I was in the maybe early 2000s, my two daughters, they were going to school, little kids, and I was thinking, all I really need is a glorified golf cart. Get the kids to school, get myself to work, stop at the grocery store, and get home. I was clocking my mileage in my regular gas vehicle, saying, really 10 miles a day would be awesome. And wouldn't it be fun if it was electric? And it was, maybe there was in California, the RAV EV1, which then got collected and mostly squashed, except for the one that's out there today. That's exciting. And I eventually met someone who had purchased a 2006 Zap Zebra. It was a little three-wheeler. It was classified as a three-wheel motorcycle, but it had 4 doors, 4 seat belts, no airbags. It wasn't a car. But I started thinking they exist. It's possible to buy something that can drive legally on the street that is a lot drier than my bicycle, was one of my goals. And I can take the kids and drop them off at school, and I can bring home some groceries, so nothing too huge. And I researched the Zap Zebra for a year and a half because it was very new technology, and I knew what its limitations were when I finally bought it. So I drove a glorified golf cart for 8 years, over 10,000 miles, and it did exactly what I needed and nothing extra. It was poorly made in China, not well supported by the company. ZAP stood for zero air pollution, which I always said was a bit of a fib, depending on how you had your electricity coming to your house. At the same time that I got the Zap Zebra, though, I got solar panels, enough on the house to power the car and a little bit extra. So I like to say I was driving a solar-powered car. And it was super fun. It was super cute. People would smile and wave everywhere I went because of the zebra stripes. And both my kids learned to drive on it. But after 8 years and car handles breaking and you can't get parts, I was finally ready. My goal was to get over 10,000 miles on it, and I got to the goal, and I gave it away to a good home after that. I'd been following the car I have now. It's a 2012 Mitsubishi IM EV. I'd been following that online and at events like this since about 2009. So I kind of knew that this was out there. It was a real car. I wasn't ready to buy it yet, but I had my eye on it as the next most minimalist vehicle that could actually go on the freeway speeds, airbags, 4 wheels, not 3, 4 doors, plus the hatchback. So it's good for carrying loads. And so I bought that in 2016 as a 2012 car with 13,000 miles on it. So a 4-year-old used car with only 13,000 miles on it. It was $9,000. Heck of a deal. The new 2016 Mitsubishi IMI EV, or IMEV, some people call it, is they were selling around $22,000 new. And I did test drive a new one, and I thought, no, I knew that particular year was not my year to claim the full federal $7,500 tax credit for a new EV. So I decided it's based on, you can't claim the full tax credit if you don't have the full tax debt. And my kids were in college, and I had some other tax credits that year, and so it just didn't make sense financially. And I liked the idea of buying used anyway. And the week that I finally could not keep the Zap going a minute longer, Clackamas CarMax had a used 2012 IMEV. And I had a friend drive me down there, and I'm thinking, how much battery degradation am I willing to accept on this car? Because the Zap had lead acid batteries that degraded very rapidly. It had a 20-mile range, which is absurd, right? But degrading rapidly. And I got down there, and they hadn't even charged it up, so I didn't even really know what the full range was on the thing. Well, it turns out it's a 62-mile range, according to the EPA. To this day, it has a 62-plus mile range. If it's nice and warm out in the summer, it'll charge up to 75 or something. So I'm really finding that the difference between old technology, lead acid, and the newer, even 2012 lithium batteries, I have experienced no degradation from this. The place that I usually send people to, and full disclosure, they've started giving me kickbacks. Sometimes it's cookie gift cards, sometimes it's a $100 check. I've sold so many cars through friends and neighbors and family members, sending them to Platt Auto. So it's not Platt Electric, but Platt Auto Group. They're down on McLaughlin. Tell them Carrie Booth sent you. Who knows what I'll get next time. I have shared some of my kickbacks, like with friends and neighbors, going, want to go out to Starbucks? I got this card. And the nice thing about Platt is it's all one-stop shopping. They're brand neutral. They're no haggle. They have a great website. You can look ahead of time and see what's on the lot. You could go drive one of each flavor. You could try the Bolt. You could try a Nissan Leaf. Maybe they have a Volkswagen iGolf. They have probably a Tesla occasionally, Kias, Hyundais, whatever. You could try all of them. If you were really gung-ho and you fell in love with a car and you wanted the brand new one, at least now you know which dealer to go to. The thing about going to a dealer that I've been told when you go looking for an electric car is it's not the hard sell, it's more of the, oh no, you don't want that, you want the gas car or the hybrid. And they're trying to talk you out of it. They make more money selling the gas car or the hybrid. And so that's one of the issues, trying to just go to a regular dealer. Whereas at Platt, this is what they do. They sell used EVs. They have occasional plug-in hybrid on the lot. They will take gas cars for trade-in. I don't know what they do with those. They probably got a way to get rid of those. And everybody I've talked into going there and has bought a car has been happy with it. So when the OEVA, when we go to the auto show, we have these standardized posters for all the different cars that exist now. And you can see there's a $40,000 car and a $60,000 car and maybe a $35,000, there's a range of prices, but some of them are quite high. It's amazing. You all know from a lifetime of experience the depreciation when you buy any new car. The minute you drive it off the lot, it just dropped in value, right? It's no longer a brand new car. I think with EVs, it's like that on steroids because everybody's going, oh, it's going to be the next best thing is just around the corner. The newest, the greatest, the bigger range, the whatever, the fancier. And a lot of people decide to lease, and that works for a lot of people. And then they trade it in and get the next fancier one or whatever. I really like a minimalist vehicle. I like saving money. I would rather spend the money I have on other fun things. And I like reuse. I volunteer for a variety of organizations. So Oregon Electric Vehicles Association, Solar Oregon. So I put my solar and car ideas together. I'm a master recycler. It's a course through Metro that you can take. So I do Electrify PDX is another one, encouraging people to slowly but surely transition away from their gas furnace, their gas water heater, their gas stove, their gas dryer, to an all-electric lifestyle, then hopefully powered by renewables. So this is one of my goals. And it took me from 2008 when I got my EV and I got my first electric panels till 2022 to totally get off the gas line. So it was a long, slow process, but it was very satisfying once I finally did. People often worry about buying a used EV because maybe the battery isn't at full capacity. And I think that's where knowing yourself, knowing your daily pattern is key. And like I said, I took a year and a half of looking at the Zap Zebra, looking at other similar neighborhood electric vehicles that weren't really cars, saying, what can they do? What do I need? And I really did need 10 miles a day most days. Maybe you need 20, maybe you need 50. Like if you know what you need, you can work with that. And even if you say buy a very old used Nissan Leaf, and they will probably say, you know, it's charging up to 80% of what it was advertised as when new. Well, you'll know what that mileage is, and then you'll know that will work for me, or that's really not going to work for me. And then you'll start looking at maybe a Chevy Bolt that has a 250-mile range. So it's really a matter of knowing what you need. And in my world, what's enough? I have this principle of, does it do what I need and not a whole lot more? Because I don't want to pay for the stuff I don't really need or the stuff I only need every now and then. So I like to go cross-country skiing on Mount Hood. My car has a 62-mile range. It is not going to get up there and back again. My kids live in town, my daughters. I'm like, hey, could I swap cars with you for a day? Oh, sure, Mom, no problem. They're just going around town in my car is fine, and I'm going up to the mountain and back in their currently gas cars. I'm trying to talk them into a plug-in hybrid next time. But I think people often think that they need a car that does everything they might ever conceivably want it to do at any point in their life. And I'm like, you know, if you really like a big RV, maybe rent one for a couple of weeks a year. But the little around town car, or especially if you're a two-car family, having the little around town car and then another car to go further, faster, farther, whatever, is totally a workable solution. Some people talk about renting a car for the rare times that they're going on a long trip. But these days, even with something like a Chevy Bolt, they stopped making the Chevy Bolt a couple years ago, I think, and they're talking about starting to make it again. It was a very popular car. First sent out the information saying, we're not going to make these anymore. We are going to make 2 different pickup trucks. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything, right? So I think they got a lot of feedback that people were really liking the Bolt, and why don't they keep making it? So I think they're going to come out with the Bolt again. But on these standardized forms that are at the auto show, and it'll tell you the range and the price and some other details, how fast it charges, what I want on those is one more number, which is the dollar per mile of range value. If really what you want is a car that will go as far as possible before you have to plug it in again, the Chevy Bolt was the best bang for your buck. It was like $1. It was 250-mile range for a $25,000 car a couple years ago. That was the amazing connection there. Because you could spend a lot more than $25,000 on a car with a 250-mile range, and it might do other things. It might haul a trailer or something. So that's where I'm coming from, is I like a minimalist vehicle, does exactly what I need to do, not a lot more. How little can I pay for it? In my case, $9,000 at Clackamas CarMax in 2016. The car I drive is very rare. It was not very popular in the US. It was more popular worldwide. Other countries value small, so easy to park. And might be harder to get parts, but have I needed any parts? I did blow out the back window with an accidental connection to my garage door one time. Got the only back window in the country, fixed it. Haven't had any actual mechanical problems with the car. EVs are amazing for low maintenance. Tires, wipers, the occasional air filter. Even the brakes last longer because of regenerative braking. I mean, I'm assuming that you don't need me to talk you into the value of an EV, but my job today is to say, especially if it's your first EV, consider starting with a used one. It's just a lower dollar entry point. You're going to learn your way around it. I use exclusively level 1 charging in my tiny garage. My tiny car fits in my tiny garage. I have a dedicated 20 amp circuit, and 20 amps is really what you want. There's no reason for a car with a 62-mile range really to have a level 2 charger. I have friends up the street who have one. They're one of the people I talked into going to Platt, and they bought a car from Platt, a Chevy Bolt, and they said, if you ever need our level 2, it's here for you. And the only times I've used it twice in the last like 3 years because I had a change of plans and I needed to go a little farther that day in a little shorter timeline than usual. So that was it. My car did not come with a level 3 port, but you wouldn't take a 60-mile range car to Seattle anyway. Level 3 is the one that you can only get along the highway or in grocery store parking lots kind of situation. You can't have level 3 at home. It gives you 80% of your charge in about 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. So there are ways to make longer trips and get a really fast top up. But with a car like this, you'd have to stop like every 40 miles and just keep topping up and topping up and topping up. So that's impractical. With a Chevy Bolt, you could make a long distance trip with that. Some of the earlier Bolts did not come with a level 3 port as standard. So if you're looking at a used car and you're thinking, I want to go to Seattle in this car, ask the question, does it have the level 3 port? They all will take level 1 or level 2. That's just standard these days. But that's something to think about. The other thing I've been told is that if you had a very early model, let's say in 2009, I think they were making the Nissan Leaf, and it was living in like the really hot southern US, that was bad for battery degradation. But the car makers learned from that, and the newer versions, they upgraded their battery cooling systems, and so those batteries are lasting longer and longer. The car I got used came from Seattle, and you know, all cars these days, you can trace where it came from, where it was living, where it was, what work it had done on it. So I don't worry about that so much anymore unless it's a very, very old EV and you knew it came from Arizona or something. Might be something to watch out for. So let's go to the questions. We got 10 minutes. Question.
I was talking to the Bolt guy out there about his car, and he talked if I wanted to buy one, make sure that the battery had been replaced. So the question is there a source for those kinds of things for all EVs? Like
what to watch out for? You know, it's a good idea with the Bolt. I was helping a friend, he bought a used Bolt from Platt right before he got too sick to ever drive again in his life. And he went into assisted living, and I kept the Bolt for him for a couple years and took him places in it. So I was sort of co-managing this Bolt. And I took it in for all of the recalls. And I know there's like a class action suit because all the recalls, I'm like, everything was free, everything was taken care of. In his case, the battery pack had to get replaced twice because it started glitching after the first time. The second one was free, and it was amazing. I mean, it bumped up the range incredibly, and it was like you just got a new car because the battery is most of it, right? I don't blame Chevy. I think they've done the right thing. I think even if you bought a used one and the battery hadn't been upgraded, you would still be qualified to take it to the dealer and go, it needs the upgrade. And it's like half a day later, you've got the new battery.
Is there a source for the things to watch out for by brand?
Not that I know of. Maybe somebody knows of a website that's listing all these things. I think it would be brand by brand because there are owner forums. In my case, my car is so rare. I took it to get new tires. And I took it to the place I've been going for years to get tires. And the guy was really nice. He's like, oh, I've never seen one of these. Let me look. Oh, it says this tire and this, the front are different from the back. He said, oh, but those are more expensive and this is a better quality tire. Let me put this tire on. I'm like, okay, whatever. It took me about 2 weeks to realize the regen braking was no longer working. And we looked online, there was a forum, and they're like, you know what? The tolerances are so tight for the size of the tire that it just doesn't work. And I was able to go back to my guy and go, who knew? And he's like, I had no idea. Took the tires back, got me the right tires. So I think owner forums are one way to look at it. It's like reading reviews too, right? Of like, do people love this car? Do they wish they could get rid of it? When I was driving the 2007 Zap Zebra, the 2008s got recalled for braking distance problems. And instead of trying to fix it at all, they just stalled and stalled and stalled, and they finally just bought them all from the owners and trashed them. And it was interesting watching the owner forum because it was up and down. Half the owners were like, oh, thank heavens, I'm going to get $3,100 out of this glorified golf cart piece of junk. And the other half were like, wait, I just put lithium batteries in mine. I love it. I don't want to get rid of it. And I'm in the 2007 going, is it going to happen to me? It never happened, right? I don't know. It was something, they only made them for 3 years and they were all different enough that none of the parts cross-matched, and it was an odd situation with that one. But, you know, I can take my car to the Mitsubishi dealer and they don't see very many of them and they didn't sell very many of them new, but they know what to do and they have a routine maintenance, and it's usually just the wiper blades and the air filter, but, you know, and I forget to take it in for a couple years. I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably have them look at something. And then it's pretty low maintenance. And, you know, so my car's 13 years old, still gets fully charged, 62 miles or more. Yeah. There were some other questions, I think, or not. Yes.
If you were to consider buying a used EV, and you went to Craigslist, all this sort of stuff, do you have any thoughts about, you know, the big question mark is, what's the battery pack like?
Right.
And taking it to a dealer and having them run their stuff, or taking it to a local company and have somebody check.
You know, I think this is one of the other advantages of Platt is that they have like a close relationship with the Chevy dealer. And so they make sure all the recalls are taken care of with the bolts that they sell used on the lot there. And they probably do the similar thing with any other dealer that they can work with. You know, going online, like even if you were just going to buy a gas car from some individual, you would take it to a mechanic. You would take it somewhere where they would know something about it. And whether that's the dealer, I don't know if Platt offers that as a service, like check out this EV for me if I pay you $150. I don't know. That would be kind of cool, yeah?
Kind of piggybacking off what you said, the Nissan Leafs have a state of health meter in the dash that tells you the battery health, and they come off the line with 12 bars, and they lose a bar-ish a year or something like that. I don't know if that's the case with other EVs like the Mitsubishi. Or...
You know, mine definitely now has 16 bars and it still charges up to 16 bars, and it's telling me the estimate is 65 miles this time. There's an algorithm that is kind of hidden of how fast have you been driving lately? How much have you been using the heater lately? So there's all these factors. So that's the other thing. If you're new to EVs, seat heater is key to warming yourself. I also have a little lap blanket just to extra cozy. I really minimize the use of the heater because that's going to cut the range potentially in half. If you're blasting the heat the whole time you're driving around, I don't have a 60-mile range, I have a 30-mile range, right? And you've got to be aware of that. I did drive my friend's Bolt a couple times up to Mount Hood, and it's a little nerve-wracking because you use more than half to get up there, but you can come all the way back down and use absolutely nothing and gain the whole way down. So you kind of have to be aware of the regen potential of a hill. Heavy load, whether it's just one person or two or four or packed to the gills, you really feel that in your range as well. And you learn this, and this is why I'm saying maybe better to learn on a used EV how you're going to use it and what you really need before you invest in a brand new, I need this one because of this range or this feature that I know I need now. Yeah. Question?
I just wondered, that dealer you recommend, is it P-L-A-T-T?
Two T's, P-L-A-T-T, and it's not Platt Electric. That's a different company. I don't know if they're related, but Platt Auto, A-U-T-O, and they're down on Southeast McLaughlin. They're very nice, and you know, just so easy compared to like going to a dealership with the hard sell, or do you need trying to sell you extras or anything. They're just very, very straightforward and very good at managing the EVs they have on site and telling you about it and not trying to push you into it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I do have friends who, you know, I bought mine at Clackamas CarMax. I called Platt that week and was like, have you seen a Mitsubishi lately, an IMI EV? And they're like, no, we hardly ever see those. And then there was one at Clackamas CarMax. I know there are others, I've seen them online across the country. You spend maybe several $100s, not thousands, to ship a car from another state, which is kind of hard to buy a car before you see it or drive it or anything. Trying to think, Carvana, a friend of mine just bought a used Bolt on Carvana. The dealers have trade-ins, used cars to sell, but you'd want to know which dealer instead of going all over town to the different dealers, I would think. But there's lots of ways to find used EVs out there. And I agree. So Bill, who asked this question, is also an IMI EV owner. We live amazingly like 6 blocks from each other. Saw each other in passing one day. I go, hey, you have one too. So any other questions before the next thing starts? Okay, thank you.